Cleveland Browns have officially traded Myles Garrett to the Los Angeles Rams, ending one of the most important eras in franchise history. Now, Browns owners Jimmy and Dee Haslam are finally breaking their silence on the shocking move. And when you hear how they're explaining the decision, you'll understand why fans are so divided. The Cleveland Browns traded the two-time AP NFL Defensive Player of the Year to the Los Angeles Rams for pass rusher Jared Verse and 3 draft picks. 1 player, 3 picks. Done. And just like that, the Myles Garrett era in Cleveland was over. In exchange for Garrett, Cleveland will receive edge rusher Jared Verse, a 2027 first-round pick, a 2028 second-round pick, and a 2029 third-round pick. That's the headline package. That's what 9 years of Myles Garrett in Cleveland is worth to a franchise doing the math on a rebuild. And the Haslams didn't stay quiet. They came out with a full joint statement. Myles Garrett has been the best player on our team and one of the best defensive players in the history of the game since we drafted him in 2017. Browns managing partners Dee and Jimmy Haslam said in a joint statement released on the team's website. Strong words, warm words, but words that came after the decision had already been made. Clearly, this was not an easy decision, particularly with Myles, because we've watched him come into our organization and grow like a member of our family. Trading Myles was never our intent, but we also recognize that certain opportunities demand serious consideration, and we believe this is the right move for our team. That's the owners. That's the statement the whole NFL was waiting on. Now GM Andrew Berry, he'd spent months telling anyone who would listen that this wasn't coming. We have long taken the stance that our goal was for Myles Garrett to be a one-helmet player for his entire career. Berry's statement reads, "After rewriting the record books and representing our organization with excellence, we were sincere in that desire as we entered this offseason and did not envision a world where Myles was not a Cleveland Brown. And yet, here we are. We recognize the unexpected nature of this trade, but it opens up great opportunities for our franchise." Berry said in a statement, "From Myles as a career Brown to we recognize the unexpected nature of this trade, all in the span of months." That's the kind of reversal that makes fans stop and stare. So let's talk about what this trade actually means, because the numbers here don't lie. Garrett departs the Browns as arguably the best defensive player in franchise history, the No. 1 overall pick of the 2017 draft. Garrett has a franchise record 125 sacks, setting the NFL's single-season record with 23-0 in 2025. A 2-time AP Defensive Player of the Year and 5-time AP First-Team All-Pro. Garrett played 134 games for the Browns, registering 23 forced fumbles, 18 passes defensed, 6 fumble recoveries, 149 tackles for loss, and 239 QB hits. Those are not the stats of a player you trade, and yet the Browns did. It's a historically rare deal. Per ESPN, it's the first time since 1997 that a reigning Defensive Player of the Year has changed teams the following offseason. You have to go back almost 30 years to find a comparison. That's how unusual this is. Now the Rams, they're grinning from ear to ear right now. The shocking trade is completely on brand for the Rams, who made a similarly seismic move in the 2021 offseason when they acquired quarterback Matthew Stafford, in the season in which the Super Bowl was being played in Los Angeles before going on to win it. With Super Bowl 61 set to be played at SoFi Stadium this February, the Rams again are going all in and living by their mantra, while trying to repeat history. Garrett's addition marks the first time the reigning AP NFL MVP and Defensive Player of the Year will be teammates. That is a terrifying sentence for every other NFC team, and the reactions from around the league came fast. Several teammates and former Rams joined in the chorus of reactions. Jared Verse also shared a brief goodbye message to LA, the man going the other way. The man Cleveland is now banking its future on. Said goodbye to the team he came from and hello to a rebuild in Ohio. For Browns fans scrolling through their feeds on a Monday afternoon, this hit like a gut punch. The Cleveland Browns officially brought an end to the Myles Garrett era. After the greatest pass rusher in franchise history gave this franchise 9 years of his prime. 9 years. That's not a player. That's a generation of Cleveland football wrapped up in one jersey number. The Browns are 55-84-1 since Garrett arrived as the top pick in 2017, the 7th worst mark in the NFL over that span, and have made the postseason just twice. So you had the best defensive player alive, and still 2 playoff appearances in 9 years. That's the tragedy of Myles Garrett in Cleveland, not the trade, everything that led to it. To understand what just happened, You need to understand who Myles Garrett was in Cleveland. Not just the stats, although the stats are generational. You need to understand the weight of what it meant for a franchise like the Browns to have a player like him. Long before he was the newest Rams star, the Browns made Garrett the #1 overall pick of the 2017 draft. 9 years, 7 Pro Bowls, and 5 first-team All-Pro selections later, he must adjust to a change of scenery from the only NFL home he has ever known. 7 Pro Bowls, 5 first-team All-Pros, and not once did he have a quarterback worth mentioning in the same breath. The team has churned through 15 starting quarterbacks over that span. 15 starting quarterbacks in 9 years. While Myles Garrett was out there every Sunday doing his job, racking up sacks on losing teams. Garrett has been named a first-team All-Pro in 5 of the past 6 seasons, earned 6 consecutive Pro Bowls, and had at least 10 sacks in each of the past 8 campaigns. All but his rookie season in 2017. That kind of consistency on that kind of losing team is almost unheard of. Most elite players mentally check out on teams like this. Garrett kept showing up, but there were cracks. They'd been forming for a long time. He sat by himself at the end of the bench as the clock wound down during a loss. And afterwards, he was matter-of-fact about his frustration. It doesn't get any easier each week, you ask me. Garrett said regarding the team's inability to create an offense conducive to winning football games. I would throw the whole performance away for a win. He said about his own accomplishments. That's not a man chasing stats. That's a man drowning in a franchise that couldn't build around him. And then came the 2024 season. Cleveland went 3-14. Things bottomed out last season as Cleveland dropped to a 3-14 record, even with Garrett leading the NFL with 22 tackles for loss. And just 1 year after an 11-win campaign with the league's top-ranked defense. You win 11 games 1 year with the best defense in football, and then you fall apart completely the next season. Same player, different year, different result. By early February 2025, Garrett had made up his mind. He put out the statement heard around the NFL. While I've loved calling this city my home, my desire to win and compete on the biggest stages won't allow me to be complacent. The goal was never to go from Cleveland to Canton. It has always been to compete for and win a Super Bowl. With that in mind, I have requested to be traded from the Cleveland Browns. The goal was never to go from Cleveland to Canton. That one line, that's the line that cut right through everything. Canton is literally 60 miles from Cleveland. It's where the Hall of Fame lives. And Garrett was telling the world that a gold jacket wasn't the goal. He wanted a ring. The Browns' response? Browns general manager Andrew Berry said you can put that on the record that he wasn't interested in trading Garrett, even for 2 first-round picks. Berry even indicated the franchise wanted to sign Garrett to an extension. And then things got messy. Reports emerged that Browns owner Jimmy Haslam wouldn't meet with Garrett, who was considering sitting out games. The owner of the franchise wouldn't sit down with his best player, the face of the team, the man who'd bled for this franchise through 15 different quarterbacks. As it turns out, money talks. 2 days after that report, Garrett signed a 4-year, $160 million extension with Cleveland. The contract also included a no-trade clause. He had the final say on where he went. If you wanted to move Myles Garrett, he had to sign off on it. That was the power he had. The Browns gave it to him. The deal averages $40 million per season and includes $123,596,125 in total guarantees, with $88 million guaranteed at signing, the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. That's what it cost to convince Myles Garrett to stay in Cleveland. But the 2025 season came, and the Browns went 5-12. An air of uncertainty lingered over the relationship between the player and the Browns, and Garrett remained open to new scenery. The player continued to make it clear that his commitment to the organization was contingent on them being competitive. That obviously didn't come to fruition in 2025, as the Browns finished with only 5 victories. However, Garrett did have a prolific season that saw him break the NFL sack record, 5 wins. And yet Garrett individually had the greatest defensive season in NFL history. Garrett was the unanimous choice for Defensive Player of the Year last season after he had 23 sacks and broke the NFL single-season record, the best defensive season ever played, on a team that won 5 games. That is Cleveland Browns football. And it's the backdrop to everything that happened next. Here's where it gets technical. Here's where the Browns were either planning something or stumbled into a deal they couldn't refuse. Either way, This is the moment the door opened. March 2026. The Browns and Myles Garrett agreed to a modification to his contract. General manager Andrew Berry was able to make a deal after the Browns, and Garrett agreed to modify the contract and defer option payments over the 2026-28 seasons in March. The first payment of around $10 million was due on March 28, but was moved to near the start of the regular season. At the time, the Browns insisted this wasn't about a trade. They said it was a cap management tool. According to Cleveland.com's Mary Kay Cabot, the Browns have no plans to trade Garrett. Cabot additionally reported that Garrett agreed to the contract modifications finalized by the NFL on Tuesday. In essence, Garrett's options bonuses in 2026, 2027, and 2028 have been pushed back from March to September, giving the Browns a 6-month break on the cap in each of those years. Cabot wrote, "That's the public explanation. A 6-month break. A cap planning move. Nothing to see here." But the Rams were watching. The Rams' interest in Garrett was sparked shortly after the Browns modified the contract of the 7-time Pro Bowl defensive end in March, pushing back the options bonuses from the 15th day of the league year in March to 7 days before the start of the regular season, making it easier to trade him. The Browns were adamant that they had no interest in trading Garrett, and even told that to the Rams. According to sources, they told the Rams no directly, and the Rams kept pushing anyway. When the Rams first approached us with the possibility of trading Myles, we remained convicted in our position. But as discussions intensified, we were stuck at a legitimate crossroads. Do we hold on to a truly generational player who has become the identity of our team? Or do we make the difficult decision that we think is best for the organization over the long run? That's Jimmy and Dee Haslam's own words. They were convicted until they weren't. And there's the detail about the NFL draft that adds another layer. According to Yahoo's Jory Epstein, when the Rams drafted Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson at no 13 overall, Browns owner Jimmy Haslam proclaimed that Berry knew about that selection weeks ago. This indicates that the two teams had been in conversations leading up to the NFL draft. So while Berry was publicly calling Garrett a career Brown, both front offices were having conversations that suggested otherwise. That's the business of football. But it still stings to see it laid out like that. Now, the date matters here. June 1. The seismic move takes place on June 1, an important accounting day on the NFL calendar. This wasn't accidental timing. The Browns waited. They were deliberate about this. Once they got past the June 1 deadline, the Browns signaled their full-on rebuild by moving their best player. Waiting until now has allowed Cleveland to split the $41 million in dead money on the salary cap over the next 2 seasons. $15.53 million in 2026, $25.56 million in 2027. Rather than taking it all on in 2026. That's the financial logic. Instead of eating $41 million in 1 year, you split it. You give yourself room to breathe. You use the cap space to build the team you actually need, not the one you're desperately propping up. And then you look at what the Rams were willing to offer, and it starts to make sense. Chief among the considerations to make the decision was the inclusion of Jared Verse, a player our fan base will love. At 25 years old, with 2 Pro Bowls and a Defensive Rookie of the Year award under his belt, we receive a young, elite player at a premium position. That's the Haslams making their case to Browns fans. Verse isn't just a pick compensation player, he's a genuine star. Verse was the 2024 Defensive Rookie of the Year and posted 7.5 sacks last season. Only Micah Parsons and Garrett have more pressures than Verse's 99. Since he entered the league per ESPN research, the 3rd player in the entire league in pressures over the past 2 seasons, behind Parsons and behind Garrett himself. That's the player Cleveland is now betting on. The Browns will now own 2 first-round picks in a talent-rich 2027 draft, plus additional premium selections in 2028 and 2029. Cleveland entered Monday with $18.8 million in salary cap space and should have no problems taking on Verse's rookie contract, which will pay him $4.1 million in 2026. So the Browns get a cost-controlled elite pass rusher at $4.1 million. And they've got draft capital stacked up like firewood heading into a rebuild. The Browns are expected to get what they believe is long-term value, significant draft pick compensation to go along with Verse, a younger, cheaper player who is not eligible for a contract extension until after this season. The Browns privately have calculated that this trade is likely to save them $30 million in cash. though they are fully prepared to pay verse when the time is right. $30 million in savings. 2 first-rounders. An elite young pass rusher. On paper, this looks like a franchise reset, but the Browns still don't have a quarterback. The significant questions remain at quarterback, where Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders are expected to compete for the starting gig. If the franchise quarterback isn't on the roster, moving on from Garrett now allows them to obtain picks that could help obtain one down the road. If the Browns continue to flounder, the net return on the pass rusher 1 or 2 years from now would have been significantly less. There it is. The honest calculation: a declining team with Myles Garrett on a giant contract but no quarterback is a team going nowhere. Now they have ammunition to actually build something, whether they do or not. That's a different question entirely. Jimmy and Dee Haslam have been the owners of this franchise since 2012, 14 years. And in those 14 years, Cleveland has had coaching change after coaching change, quarterback after quarterback, and exactly 2 playoff appearances. The Haslams have become a symbol to many Browns fans of everything wrong with the franchise. Not bad people, but a front office culture that cycles through promises and pivots faster than the team cycles through signal callers. So when they issued this statement on Myles Garrett, the words carried weight beyond the trade itself. It was also, whether they meant it to be or not, a statement about who they are as owners. Myles Garrett has been the best player on our team and one of the best defensive players in the history of the game. Since we drafted him in 2017, the Haslam statement reads, "His legacy is immense, and we could never adequately articulate our appreciation for how he played the game and for being the best player he could be for the Cleveland Browns over the last 9 years. He has left a deep imprint on our franchise, with our fans, and with the dog pound." That's a beautiful tribute, and it's sincere in how it reads. But here's where it starts to get complicated. In that framework, the decision became clear. Although our emotions were muddled, we, and more importantly, our fans have grown up with Myles, and he's an enormous source of pride for our team. However, as we embark on a new era of Browns football, with a young core and a replenished asset base, we felt this move was important to our transition. New era of Browns football. That's a phrase that has been said about 6 different eras since the Haslams took over, and each time it came with a similar framing. Something had to give, something had to change, and the pivot was the right move for the long run. But the part of the statement that the internet locked onto immediately, that hit the hardest, was the detail about when exactly the Haslams told Garrett what was coming. We met with Myles on Saturday and told him we are extremely grateful for all that he contributed to our team and to our community, and that he will always be a Cleveland Brown. Saturday. The trade was announced Monday. That means Myles Garrett got less than 48 hours notice that his 9-year career in Cleveland was over. The man they called family, the man whose legacy they called immense, got a meeting on a weekend. Compare that to February 2025, when Garrett publicly requested a trade and wanted a sit-down with ownership. Reports emerged that Browns owner Jimmy Haslam wouldn't meet with Garrett, who was considering sitting out games. He couldn't get a meeting to talk about his future when he wanted one, but he got a meeting on a Saturday afternoon to be told his future had already been decided. That contrast is sharp. It's the kind of thing that fans don't forget, and the kind of thing that shapes how a statement like the Haslams gets received. GM Barry's statement had its own layer of complication. When Barry spoke at the league meetings in late March, he took it a step further. "Myles is a career Brown," Barry said then. "He is one of the faces of our organization. I think we've been very clear, both past and present, in terms of our goals. The Browns are now going back on that." He said it publicly at the league meetings, less than 3 months before the trade went through. Now, in fairness, and the Haslams did make this point, the Rams made an offer that was genuinely hard to refuse. The package they put together was aggressive. Browns general manager Andrew Berry said the team's intention was for Garrett to be a one-helmet player for his entire career. But the Rams trade offer became too good to pass up. And historically, the comparison to other defensive trades makes the point. When the Raiders traded Khalil Mack 18 months after he was named the league's top defensive player, they received 2 first-round picks, a 3rd-round pick, and a 6th-round pick, while sending a 2nd-round pick and a conditional 5th-round pick. Just last year, the Packers sent 2 first-rounders and then 29-year-old Kenny Clark to Dallas to acquire Micah Parsons. Cleveland got Jarrett Verse, who in any other trade would command a first-rounder on his own, plus 3 picks across 3 years. In a trade not involving Garrett, a player of Verse's caliber, age, and contract would likely yield a first-round pick and then some. The combination of Verse plus the picks can reasonably add up to at least 3 first-rounders. So the math works. The logic holds. But the dog pound isn't doing math right now. They're doing something much harder than that. Myles Garrett did not leave quietly. He never did anything quietly, and his farewell to Cleveland was exactly what you would expect from a man who gave everything he had to this city for 9 years. Garrett posted a heartfelt letter on Monday evening, addressed directly to Cleveland, Northeast Ohio, and every Browns fan. It's hard to put into words what that really means, when so much of your life has been shaped in one place, around one team, and with one community behind you. From my very first play, you embraced me, and I wanted to help bring winning back to a city whose loyalty, resilience, and belief never wavered. What I didn't fully understand then was how much this city would shape me. Cleveland made me tougher. You challenged me. You taught me about perseverance, about showing up even when things aren't easy, and what loyalty really looks like. That's the part of a farewell letter that doesn't sound written, that sounds lived. What I can say with complete honesty is this: I gave this city everything I had, he wrote, while also thanking the team, his fans, and the entire community. I suited up and wore those colors with pride, and I don't regret a second of being part of this storied franchise. To the dog pound, thank you for embracing my family and I from day one. Garrett wrote, thank you for every packed stadium, every moment of belief, every kid wearing my jersey, every message, every criticism, every expectation. I respected that then, and I respect it now. I wish I could have done more for you. That last line. I wish I could have done more for you. From a man who set the all-time NFL single-season sack record while playing for a team that won 5 games. What more could a player possibly have given? He could not bring them a championship. Garrett is leaving Cleveland with a little regret and a lot of appreciation. And now he heads to Los Angeles, to a team that was already considered a Super Bowl favorite before this deal. Los Angeles also traded for star cornerback Trent McDuffie from the Kansas City Chiefs and signed his fellow former Chiefs cornerback Jalen Watson. After advancing to the NFC Championship game last season, it's clear that the Rams are hoping to contend for a Super Bowl title in 2026. All this comes as the franchise is set to host Super Bowl LXI in February at SoFi Stadium. The Rams won Super Bowl LVI in their building following the 2021 season, and now they have a game wrecker in Garrett added to their arsenal for this title run. Super Bowl at home. Reigning Defensive Player of the Year now on your roster. MVP on offense. That's what the Rams have assembled. And for Garrett, the timing couldn't be more perfect. Garrett has been a good soldier on some lousy Browns teams, and now he gets the chance to chase a Super Bowl on a Los Angeles team that many consider to be the Super Bowl favorite at this moment in time. The goal was never to go from Cleveland to Canton. It was always to compete for a ring. He's finally in position to do it. Back in Cleveland, the rebuild moves forward. The Browns spent the offseason revamping their offense, completely overhauling the offensive line and drafting receivers Casey Concepcion and Denzel Boston. New coach Todd Monken is now free to shape this thing in his own image, without having to manage the emotional weight of a superstar whose patience had run out. Going into the 2026 campaign, the Browns still don't have an answer at quarterback, allowing Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders to compete for the starting job. With multiple first-round picks in the next few drafts, the Browns will finally be equipped to find their own franchise quarterback. That's the hope. That's the plan. More picks, younger roster, lower cap hits, a fresh identity. The Browns will move forward with Verse, Mason Graham, and Carson Schwessinger, leading a very young defense that is still poised to kick some butt in the upcoming next few seasons. But there's a harder truth sitting underneath all of this. It is impossible to construe the 2026 Cleveland Browns being better without Garrett than with him. And losing him is a significant blow for the team's prospects this upcoming season, regardless of the return. They're worse this year. That's just true. And that's the trade the franchise made. Except a bad 2026. Maybe a bad 2027 in exchange for a shot at something that actually lasts. The Haslams broke their silence. They called him family. They called the decision the right one. They said the best is ahead. They said they'd welcome him back at the appropriate time. The dog pound will see number 95 again. When that day comes, the reception he receives inside that stadium is going to tell you everything about what he meant to this city. And when that day comes, when Myles Garrett runs out onto that field in a different uniform, in front of a crowd that watched him for 9 seasons, through 15 quarterbacks, through 2 playoff runs and all those losing Sundays, that's when the full weight of this trade will land. Not in a statement, not in a press conference, in that moment. Because this isn't just a trade. It's the end of something Cleveland hasn't had in a very long time. A reason to believe in the defense. A reason to tune in even when the team is losing. A reason to point at the field and say, at least we have that. The Browns traded that away on June 1, 2026. And Jimmy and Dee Haslam broke their silence to tell the world they believed they had to. Whether the dog pound ever forgives them for it is a completely different story.